Question 1. In the context of HVACR maintenance, MEL is assigned to replace a faulty expansion valve located inside a chiller pit that is only accessible through a vertical ladder and has limited natural airflow. Upon review, the space is found to contain residual refrigerant vapors. An entry permit is completed and ventilation is initiated. However, shortly before entry, the Malta gas meter reads 19.2% oxygen and 50 pp. Ammonia. What should MEL and his team do next? A. Proceed with entry since oxygen levels are within the acceptable threshold and ammonia is below either limits. B. Postpone the entry and increase ventilation to restore oxygen to at least 20.9% before proceeding. C. Begin entry only if MEL WES. A self-contained breathing apparatus SEBA and the ammonia level remains stable. D. Enter with supplied air respirators while continuing ventilation and monitoring. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.146 mandates that oxygen levels must be between 19.5% and 23.5%. Though 19.2% is close, it is still below the acceptable minimum, classifying the space as hazardous. Furthermore, ammonia at 50 ppm exceeds the OSHA PEL of 25 ppm, 8 hour tour, so ventilate should be increased before safe entry SEBA or SAR use is a last resort after all engineering controls fail. ANSYS 0.1 and NIOSH guidelines also support ensuring oxygen is at least 19.5% before entry begins. Question 2. Based on the information, which of the following best defines a permit-required confined space under OSHA regulations? A. Space with limited access that may have poor lighting but does not contain any known hazards. B. Space that contains or has the potential to contain hazardous atmosphere or other serious safety hazards. C. Any indoor space smaller than 10 cubic meters requiring protective equipment for entry. D. Space designed for continuous occupancy that includes flammable materials. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Per OSHA 29 CFR 1910.146, B. A permit-required confined space has one or more of the following: a hazardous atmosphere, material that could engulf inwardly converging walls or sloped floors, or any recognized serious safety or health hazard. Options A, C, and D are misleading, especially C, which introduces false volumetric requirements. OSHA focuses on hazards, not size alone. Question 3. To illustrate this point, Tanya, a lead technician, is tasked with performing maintenance on a large HVACR duct system routed through a confined mechanical crawl space. The area has electrical controls for nearby fans that cannot be seen from the work location. She's already conducted hazard analysis and completed her entry permit. What is the most appropriate next step under OSHA's energy control requirements? A. Install lockout-tagout device on the fan system's electrical supply to prevent activation during entry. B. Leave the fan system on to assist with ventilation during the task. C. Post safety observer at the electrical panel in case something happens. D. Secure the entry hatch but allow electrical components to stay energized for quick diagnostics. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. According to OSHA 1910.147 LOTO standard and 1910.146 C. FAV elementary hazardous energy sources must be isolated before entry into confined spaces. Energized electrical components pose a shock, mechanical, and unexpected startup hazard. Option A is correct. Options B and D expose the worker to potential injury or death. Observers, option C, do not replace LOTO procedures. Question 4. Through the lens of effective emergency planning, a facility is designing a rescue plan for confined space work involving toxic gas potential. The rescue team will not enter the space unless necessary. Which approach complies with OSHA's hierarchy of rescue methods? A. Standby team with harness and SEBA enters if communication is lost. B. Train external EMs and rely on them for confined space rescues. C. Implement a non-entry retrieval system using a tripod and winch. D. Designate an internal technician to attempt retrieval using a manual hoist. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.146 K emphasizes non-entry rescue whenever feasible, using a retrieval system like a tripod and winch allows for immediate extraction without placing additional workers at risk. Only if this method fails should trained rescue personnel, internal or external, consider entry. Option B violates OSHA unless the external service is pre-evaluated and available. Option A still involves entry. Question 5. When evaluating the merits of atmospheric testing, which sequence of testing is required by OSHA before entering a confined space? A. Oxygen concentration, flammable gases, then toxic gases. B. Toxic gases, then oxygen, followed by flammable gases. C. Flammable gases first, followed by oxygen, then toxics. D. It depends on the specific type of confined space and its known hazards. Answer. Correct answer. A. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 D5 moment specifies a testing order. Oxygen, then combustible gases, then toxic gas vapors. Oxygen must be tested first to ensure reliable readings for other gases, since sensors can be oxygen dependent. Flammable gases come second due to explosion risk. Option D is partially true, but the required sequence must still be followed regardless of space. Question 6. During the process of inspecting an HVACR cooling tower sump area, technician Robert encounters water pooling and slippery surfaces. He's preparing to enter the sump to repair submersible pump. The confined space permit is completed. Atmospheric testing is within limits and PPE is selected. What physical hazard must be considered and how should it be mitigated? A. Risk of thermal stress. Use active cooling PPE. B. Possibility of falls. Install fall protection or secondary access system. C. Fire risk from refrigerant leaks. Install automatic suppression. D. Noise hazard from pump operation. Provide hearing protection. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Slippery surfaces and vertical entry paths introduce a fall hazard, one of the common physical hazards in confined spaces, per OSHA 1910.146b and ANSI 0.1. Fall protection. E. G. Harnesses. Fixed ladders with cages. Retrieval systems must be in place. Option D may be secondary. C is irrelevant unless specific leaks are detected. Cooling PPE applies in hot environments, not necessarily relevant here. Question 7. One might argue that accurate calibration of multi-gas detectors is not necessary before each entry. Why is this belief unsafe and contrary to standard practice? A. Calibration is only required annually per manufacturer guidelines. B. Calibration is only necessary if the unit gives unusual readings. C. Sensors degrade over time and may give false results if not calibrated. D. Zeroing the sensor in clean air eliminates need for full calibration. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. According to manufacturer guidelines and OSHA 1910.146 at B, sensors must be bump tested daily and calibrated regularly, often before each day's use. Sensors can drift or become poison, yielding dangerously inaccurate readings. Option A is false. B and D downplay risks. Only C reflects the correct understanding of gas detection principles and responsibilities. Question 8. Given the circumstances, Felicia is assigned to clean a cooling coil within a horizontal duct system where refrigerant lines run overhead. Though no active leaks are detected, the system uses R717 ammonia and the workspace qualifies as a confined space. What type of respiratory protection is most appropriate? A. Dust mask with organic vapor cartridges. B. Full efficiency BA rated for ammonia. C. Air purifying respirator with HEPA filter. D. No respirator is needed if ammonia is not detected. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. R717 ammonia is toxic and irritating even at low levels, because ammonia can become suddenly present due to leaks and confined space restricts egress. SCBA is the safest and OSHA recommended option for unknown or idle conditions. 1910.134. APROs cannot be used in idle or oxygen deficient atmospheres. Dust masks and HEPA filters C. Offer no ammonia protection. Question 9. From a practical standpoint, which of the following best describes the role of the The attendant during a permit-required confined space entry. A. To supervise the work and ensure quality standards are met. B. To monitor the work from inside the space and assist the entrant. C. To remain outside the space, monitor conditions, and initiate rescue procedures if necessary. D. To enter the space only during emergencies or equipment handoff. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. The attendant must stay outside the confined space at all times per OSHA 1910.146. Their role is to monitor atmospheric conditions, maintain communication, and initiate emergency action, including calling for rescue. They do not enter the space under any condition unless fully trained and authorized as a rescuer. Options B and D violate regulations. Question 10. In what ways can confined space atmospheric hazards be underestimated during HVACR system maintenance? A. By assuming sealed systems do not leak and require no testing. B. By conducting only initial testing and skipping continuous monitoring. C. By relying solely on PPE instead of using ventilation. D. All of the above. Answer. Correct answer. D. Explanation. Each choice illustrates a critical failure in atmospheric hazard management. Sealed systems can leak. Initial tests may miss evolving hazards. IP is a last line of defense. Engineering controls like ventilation should be primary. OSHA 1910.146 D5 Omen through and best practices stress continuous monitoring, ventilation, and proactive assumptions about hazards. Option D encompasses all key mistakes. Question 11. In light of recent developments, technician Ravi is required to service a boiler located in a below-grade vault accessed by a narrow stairwell. The vault houses natural gas lines, electrical conduits, and has no mechanical ventilation. Ravi begins to feel dizzy after a few minutes inside. Atmospheric readings were taken prior to entry but not during. What is the likely procedural failure? A. Improper PPE selection for heat and gas exposure. B. Failure to continuously monitor for atmospheric hazards. C. Not performing a lockout trigger on the electrical conduit. D. Skipping pre-entry permit review with the supervisor. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. According to OSHA 1910.146 D5 ohm through continuous atmospheric monitoring is required if the hazard profile is subject to change. Natural gas presence, heat stress, and limited airflow make this space dangerous. Dizziness may indicate hypoxia or gas exposure. One-time testing is insufficient. While A, C, and D are important, only B directly aligns with symptoms and regulatory compliance failure. Question 12. Throughout the course of a confined space entry near an ammonia-based chiller system, Sabrina, acting as entry supervisor, signs the permit and authorizes the entrant team. After 20 minutes, the gas detector alarms for ammonia at 150 ppm. What is Sabrina's first required action under OSHA regulations? A. Shut off the chiller system to prevent further release. B. Dial EPE and enter to verify readings herself. C. Initiate evacuation of all entrants and terminate entry. D. Call the facility manager for instructions. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 E3V and 1910.146 D9 mandate that if a hazardous atmosphere is detected during entry, all entrants must immediately evacuate and the permit is no longer valid. At 150 ppm, ammonia exceeds both PEL 25 ppm and idle 300 ppm thresholds. Entry supervisor must initiate evacuation, verifying readings or consulting managers. B. D. Delay immediate safety action. Question 13. The most significant aspect of a pre-entry briefing is to ensure all workers understand the hazards and procedures of a confined space job. Which of the following elements must be included in the briefing under OSHA's confined space standard? A. Summary of the weather conditions and time of day. B. Review of PPE maintenance logs and team birthdays. C. Discussion of potential hazards, rescue procedures and assigned duties. D. The name of the facility EO and the company's mission statement. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 C. T and H2 require a pre-entry briefing that includes identification of hazards, use of PPE, communication procedures, roles of team members, and rescue strategies. This ensures informed decision-making and legal compliance. Choices A, B, and D are irrelevant distractions. Only C aligns with regulatory mandates. Question 14. A critical examination of the ventilation system used during confined space entry reveals that natural ventilation alone is often insufficient in HVAC-related pits and shafts. Why is mechanical ventilation generally preferred? A. It ensures consistent airflow and dilution of contaminants. B. It allows use of cheaper PPE by minimizing risk. C. It makes atmospheric testing unnecessary during work. D. It guarantees full removal of all gases regardless of density. Answer. Correct answer, A. Explanation. Mechanical ventilation provides controlled directional airflow, reducing buildup of toxic or flammable gases. OSHA 1910.146 C5 Roman 2 and answers point 1 recommend forced air ventilation to maintain safe conditions. Natural ventilation is unpredictable and may not reach confined zones adequately. B is a misconception. C is false. Monitoring is still required. D overstates capabilities. Question 15. When faced with confined space work in an HVACR environment where both electrical and refrigerant systems are present, what is the most comprehensive lockout-tagout (LOTO) strategy? A. Lock out only the electrical circuits powering the fans and compressors. B. Tag out only visible control switches near the entry point. C. Lock out all energy sources, including electrical, mechanical, and fluid pressure systems. D. Shut off the power and monitor refrigerant levels visually. Answer. Correct answer, C. Explanation. According to OSHA 1910.147 LOTO and 1910.146 D. For Omen for all forms of hazardous energy, electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, thermal, must be isolated and locked out before entry. HVACR systems often involve multiple types. Only C meets for LOTO compliance. A is partial. B is insufficient. D lacks energy isolation. Question 16. As evidenced by numerous incidents, relying solely on personal gas detectors carried by entrants can be dangerous in dynamic confined spaces. Why is area monitoring or remote monitoring increasingly recommended? A. To allow faster data uploads for insurance purposes. B. Because gas diffusion may not reach personal sensors quickly. C. Because entrants are too busy to check their detectors. D. To avoid legal liability by offloading responsibility. Answer. Correct answer, B. Explanation. OSHA guidance and ANSI Point 1 emphasize continuous atmospheric monitoring, and area or remote monitors supplement personal detectors by providing real-time readings from multiple points. Gases like hydrogen sulfide or carbon dioxide may stratify or concentrate away from the entrant's immediate breathing zone. B. Addresses this physical limitation. Other options are incorrect or irrelevant. Question 17. With respect to HVACR-specific confined spaces, technician Jorge enters an underground refrigeration line vault. He's using 4-gas monitor but did not test for refrigerants. After 30 minutes, his coworker finds him unconscious. What procedural gap most likely led to this outcome? A. Jorge used 4-gas monitor, which does not detect refrigerants like R134. B. He forgot to wear a reflective vest. C. He didn't calibrate his monitor to detect hydrogen sulfide. D. His harness straps were not adjusted correctly. Answer. Correct answer, A. Explanation. Standard 4-gas detectors measure O, HS and LEL, not refrigerants like R134 or R400 TINA. OSHA doesn't mandate specific gas lists but requires monitoring of all reasonably expected hazards. Using the wrong detection device violates 1910.146 D5I. B, C, and D are unrelated to his collapse. Refrigerant toxicity and displacement of oxygen are likely culprits. Question 18. Upon closer examination, what is a common hazard associated with entry into HVAC-related confined spaces that sets them apart from general industry confined spaces? A. The presence of vertical access only. B. Proximity to office personnel. C. Risk of refrigerant release or high-pressure system rupture. D. The need to maintain decorative finishes. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. HVACR confined spaces involve unique hazards such as pressurized refrigerant systems, ammonia exposure for R717, and explosion risks. OSHA 1910.146 and EPA guidelines highlight these industry-specific dangers. A is common across industries. B is irrelevant. D is aesthetic, not safety-related. Only C captures the technical complexity of HVACR confined spaces. Question 19. Looking at the data on confined space fatalities, what is a major contributing factor for multiple deaths in a single confined space incident? A. Poor lighting leading to slips and trips. B. Secondary entrants attempting unauthorized rescues. C. Faulty ladders used for descent. D. Miscommunication with the supervisor about deadlines. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. OSHA data and NIOSH reports show that untrained coworkers entering to rescue the original victim is a leading cause of multiple fatalities. This is why non-entry rescue systems are mandated and entry is limited to trained rescuers only per 1910.146 KAC, and D may contribute to risk but rarely cause cascading deaths. Question 20. By evaluating confined space entries performed during seasonal HVAC maintenance, what scheduling strategy can best reduce confined space hazards? A. Perform entries during high-demand periods for HVAC systems. B. Schedule work during off hours when fewer people are around. C. Align entries with peak system pressure for efficiency testing. D. Avoid LOTO to reduce delays during peak season. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Scheduling during low occupancy periods reduces distractions, equipment use, and system load. This lowers risk from noise, electrical systems, and pressure changes. OSHA doesn't mandate timing but recommends minimizing operational complexity during entry. A and C increase risks. D violates LOTO requirements under 1910.147. Question 21. The evolution of confined space PPE HVACR maintenance highlights the importance of selecting gear based on task-specific risks. During a compressor replacement in a narrow pit, Marcus is exposed to potential refrigerant leaks and pressurized oil lines. Which PPE combination offers the best protection for this type of work? A. Fire-resistant coveralls, leather gloves, and chemical splash goggles. B. Standard cotton clothing, nitrile gloves and earplugs. C. Chemical-resistant suit, full-face respirator, and cut-resistant gloves. D. Mechanics gloves, safety glasses, and half-mask kappa. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.132 and 1910.146 D, or ROMEP must match identified hazards. In this case, chemical-resistant suits guard against refrigerant oil spray, full-face respirators protect from airborne toxic exposure, especially ammonia or other refrigerants, and cut-resistant gloves reduce mechanical injury. The other options offer partial, inappropriate protection. Question 22. The foundation of safe confined space entry is the permit system. What does a confined space permit legally authorize and require under OSHA regulations? A. It authorizes work in any confined space on site. B. It allows unsupervised work once signed by the safety manager. C. It specifies conditions and time frame for one specific entry, including hazard controls. D. It serves only as a record-keeping tool with no operational function. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 F defines a confined space permit as a legal document identifying specific hazards, control methods, and the time frame for entry. It must include authorized entrants, roles, and monitoring data. It is not universal. A. Does not allow unsupervised work. B. And is operational, not merely archival. D. Question 23. In response to an HVACR incident where an employee lost consciousness in some space, investigators found that the attendant left the post to retrieve a tool. Which core responsibility did the attendant fail to uphold? A. Providing the correct EPE for the entrant. B. Continuously monitoring the atmosphere using fixed sensors. C. Remaining outside the space and ready to initiate rescue procedures. D. Conducting the pre-entry briefing for the team. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 I4 clearly states the attendant must remain outside the confined space and be capable of initiating rescue without delay. Leaving the post, even briefly, puts entrants at severe risk. PPEA sensors B and briefings D are not the attendant's exclusive duties, though important. Question 24. In comparison with general confined space entries, what unique hazard exists when performing HVACR tasks inside an ice storage tank used for load shifting? A. Risk of ignition from flammable refrigerants. B. Heat stress due to high ambient temperatures. C. Hypothermia or cold stress from prolonged exposure to sub-zero surfaces. D. Inhalation of asbestos insulation particles. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Ice storage tanks used in HVACR may present cold stress hazards, a rare but real concern in confined space work. OSHA recommends mitigating through thermal EP, time limits, and monitoring for hypothermia. Unlike heat stress, this risk is environment specific. Options A and D may exist but are not inherent to ice tank work. Question 25. By comparing HVACR confined space rescue strategies, which of the following represents a compliant non-entry rescue system? A. Sending in a trained technician wearing an SCBA for rapid retrieval. B. Using a tripod, winch and full body harness to extract the entrant externally. C. Tying a rope around the entrant's waist to assist in pulling them out. D. Calling 911 and waiting for the fire department to initiate rescue. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. Per OSHA 1910.146 K3, non-entry rescue is preferred and often required when feasible. The tripod winch harness method allows for retrieval without exposing others. A. Becomes entry rescue, which has stricter training requirements. C. Is unsafe and not approved. D. May cause delays unless prearranged with a capable service. Question 26. The underlying principle of atmospheric stratification explains why testing only the breathe-in zone can miss serious hazards. Why must confined spaces be tested at multiple levels? A. Because OSHA requires at least 3 readings per space. B. Gases may settle or rise depending on their density relative to air. C. Entrants often move between different levels and elevations. D. To satisfy insurance auditing requirements. Answer. Correct answer. B. Explanation. According to OSHA 1910.146 Appendix B, gases like hydrogen sulfide, heavier, or methane, lighter, may settle at different levels. Multi-level testing ensures a full atmospheric profile is captured. A. Misstates OSHA's method, while C. may be partially true. B. Is the core physical reason for the procedure. Question 27. A growing trend in multi-story HVACR buildings is the use of vertical chases and shafts. Technician Nora is tasked with entering such a shaft to inspect refrigerant piping. The shaft is narrow, unventilated, and has overhead piping. What is the most critical risk mitigation measure before she enters? A. Providing a fire extinguisher at the base of the shaft. B. Replacing overhead lights with LED fixtures to improve visibility. C. Lockout a gate of refrigerant system and forced air ventilation. D. Assigning 2 junior assistants to help hold ropes. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Before confined space entry, especially in vertical HVAC chases, both hazardous energy, LOTO, and atmospheric control ventilation must be addressed. Overhead piping poses burst or leak risk. OSHA 1910.146 D3 and 1910.147 LOTO standards require isolation of refrigerant systems. The other options don't address the core hazards. Question 20. Across different scenarios, confined space entrants may be required to wear respiratory protection. What factor determines whether a supplied air respirator or a SCBA is necessary? A. The temperature of the confined space. B. Whether the space is more than 300 feet long. C. Whether the atmosphere is immediately dangerous to life or health. Idle. D. The skill level of the entrant. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Under OSHA 1910.134 and 1910.146, if a confined space is classified as idle, the RCBA or supplied air respirator with escape bottle is required. Factors include oxygen deficiency, high concentrations of toxic gases, and unknown hazards. Length of the space or temperature A, B do not dictate respirator type. Question 29. Examining the consequences of improper confined space labeling, a facility marked in HVAC plenum chambers, safe without assessment. Later, contractor suffered exposure to refrigerant gas. What regulation was violated? A. OSHA's lockout-out program under 1910.147. B. EPA's refrigerant recovery standard. C. OSHA's confined space identification and evaluation under 1910.146. C. 1. D. ANSI's gas piping standards. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. OSHA 1910.146 C.1 requires that every space be evaluated to determine if it meets the criteria of a permit-required confined space. Mislabeling violates this duty and leads to incidents. LOTO A is related but not the core issue. EPA standards B apply to refrigerant handling, not space entry labeling. D is unrelated. Question 30. The implications of improper denigization during HVACR confined space work can be severe. During condenser coil maintenance in a pit, the technician bypasses LOTO and the system starts unexpectedly. What is the most likely regulatory consequence for the employer? A. A mandatory retraining session. B. A citation under OSHA's general duty clause. C. Fine under OSHA 1910.147 for failure to control hazardous energy. D. Recommendation letter issued by the inspector. Answer. Correct answer. C. Explanation. Failure to apply proper LOTO procedures violates OSHA 1910.147, often resulting in citations and monetary penalties. It is a critical safety failure. While retraining it may follow, it is not the primary regulatory action. General duty clause B is used when no specific standard exists, which is not the case here.